Hey everyone, so happy to be here. I'm Felix from Needle, and today I'm going to show a little bit about what Needle Engine is, how it relates to building experiences for the web, a couple of our samples and applications just to give you a general overview, and also going into using, for example, the Webaverse Character Studio to bring characters into Needle for building kind of event spaces and stuff like this. So Needle Engine is itself kind of split in two parts. Like for one, it's a web runtime where you can basically run stuff all on the web that natively works for phones and AR and desktop and VR glasses and AR glasses and everything, like the power of the browser as a platform basically. And a number of integrations into applications where for example, into the Unity editor or into Blender or into NVIDIA's Omniverse, so that you have a super easy way to bring 3D worlds into the web. And the beauty of that is that you can keep using editors you already know, like for example Blender, instead of having to recreate everything in another toolset. And that often, depending on the integration, comes with additional powers such as light maps or components and shaders and all the kind of cool stuff that is hard to do if you have a closed platform on the web. And Needle Engine is really designed as something super open, very hackable. You're able to extend it with your own components, bring your own 3D models of any complexity. We're doing the heavy lifting of optimizing those so that you ideally can bring a lot of different things into the web. This is our homepage. So Needle Engine isn't open source, but it's pretty affordable and it's free for many use cases that are in kind of research categories for personal use if you're under a certain financial threshold and so on. And our website itself is, of course, made with Needle and just contains a couple of nice examples, for example, for light mapping and bringing that to the web with just a few clicks. Also works in VR and AR, or custom shaders, so like shaders made, for example, in Shader Graph in Unity, that you can easily like bring to the web and have this like powerful editor plus something that runs on the web. Yeah, here's an example about packing, and it's an example of a relatively complex application that we're bringing to the web. So just to give an example of like the complexity that Needle Engine applications can reach. This is Songs of Cultures from A News, and we're helping them to port this from being a Unity application originally, made for Android and iOS, and it won the Unity for Humanity grant last year. And we're now helping to bring it to the web to a wider audience. And I have a version of this here. So this is the Songs of Cultures web app running in the browser. With a number of song cards here, and we can, for example, go into one of these songs and get a scene there. And then there's a ton of like application-y stuff in terms of you can sing karaoke, you can have vocabularies and so on, learn about these cultures and languages. And that's just one example of an application made with Needle Engine that was easy to bring to the web because everything was already in Unity. Lots of content is there from lots of companies and creators, and we make it super easy to bring this to life in a like responsive way. And by responsive, I maybe should explain that we have a certain philosophy of if someone is building for the web nowadays, you don't only want to be responsive across like small screens and large screens. Responsive means more than that by now. By now it also means people have an expectation of going into something in AR or viewing it in VR, and or like with new devices coming up like Quest with pass-through and so on. Responsive means, oh yeah, that should work as well. And this is traditionally super hard with many other platforms, and we're making it our mission to make this easy and to basically allow people to build for a future where you're not just looking at a shiny storefront when you're looking at the website, but instead you can jump right in. And while so far we've been showing a lot of things in the realm of like web applications, today I'm going to show a bit more about like worlds where you have multiple people and where you have collaboration and avatars and all that kind of stuff. Some of you may know our castle builder, which was one of our first demos that we did for multiplayer and collaboration. And Castle Builder is actually a fully collaborative app that runs across all kinds of devices. And here people can basically build a castle together. Like there's all these palettes around that allow me to bring stuff here and to arrange a couple things and so on. And if you later have a moment, then I recommend trying this out, because you can get together with a couple of friends, just click on create room, and you're in a multi-player environment and can go ahead and have a fun session here building a castle. And so things like this are easy to make because Needle Engine has networking and collaboration like right at the core. Like most of our components supported out of the box, and it's easy to build on top of that to make like more complex applications where you want to have things that stay in sync and so on. And so this is Castle Builder. Castle Builder also has avatars. Like if you go to Quest, for example, I believe we have a couple of videos and so on here for like custom avatars that are basically application specific. So something that's that we think should be up to someone making an app. Like, do we want to allow people bringing any avatar? Do we limit this to something that makes sense for the application? In this case here, everyone has the same avatar, but they differ in color and so on. And yeah, just an example for making kind of custom avatars and so on. Oh, but there's of course also things where you want to have more like explorable worlds and larger areas. And as an example of that, today I have Gaudi Woods with me, which is another Unity application that we're bringing to the web. You know, and Gaudi Woods is this large area here, which is an explorable world. Basically, you have a pathway that you're walking along through the forest here, and you come across a bunch of mysterious plants and vegetation and things that like come at you and spit in your face and all that kind of stuff. Like there's lots of fascinating things to explore here. And so far this has been a desktop application, not even a VR application, a desktop application. And we're aiming to bring it to the web. And as you can see, this has quite a bit of complexity. There's thousands of objects in here. And this is a regular Unity project where we have Needle Engine in it. Needle Engine itself, you can install it as a package for Unity from our website, or you can install it as an add-on in Blender, same thing. Blender is currently still a closed alpha, so please ask in our Discord if you want to have access. Yeah, but here we have Unity with the integration package. And generally the flow of working with Needle Engine with like worlds of any complexity is that we have this kind of component for the main entry point for Needle Engine, where we say like, how does our project look, what kind of additional modules do we want to use, and so on. And we have a lot of entry points into our scene. For example, here's the entire scene with just all these objects. Here's something for the character and the lighting and so on. So you can split a bit up, like which things are like loaded and exported in which way. Oh, and basically, whenever you press play here, well, we're exporting your scene in a format that works on the web. Like basically, we're building GLTF files. Like everything on Needle Engine is centered around GLTF at the core as an open format where you can have the data in a way that it's cross-platform, that it works across engines and systems and so on. So what happens under the hood when I press play here is basically we're exporting a number of GLTF files, essentially one for each prefab that you see here for the world, everything, and they all know how they're interconnected together, like how they're, which thing gets loaded at which point, which objects have specific components, all that kind of stuff. And so as an outcome of that, now we have something running in the browser, like after a few seconds here, which is already live. I'm gonna mute this. We have our little character here, like this is just a dummy placeholder character. We have shadows and lighting, and I can explore this world now. And we took a lot of care to make sure that we can match things like lighting, materials, so that creators really have a good chance of bringing atmospheres over and creating beautiful worlds. So and this is a good example for kind of a larger world, where I can actually switch into the other camera here, where you can basically go around and let me turn fog off, and explore this entire thing here and fly through it. Yeah, so this is one example of kind of a larger world. And you see it's running in the browser. We're still working on optimizing this particular world for Quest, but we're confident that we can get there. And that's because we're doing a lot of work under the hood already for making scenes like this fast and efficient, and things use instancing and all that kind of stuff. And actually we can take a look at that. Like I can turn one of our debug flags on. Like Needle Engine has tons, I think almost 100 different flags for debugging all kinds of things like physics, showing colliders for things, lights, all that kind of stuff. And this particular one should turn on instancing, debugging. Oh, and what we can see here is that now everything that's instanced that uses like GPU instancing for efficient rendering gets a flat color, and the things that have the same color are instanced together. Like basically all these trees here are rendered in one go. And we're making sure that if there's too many of them, we're chunking that in different instancing calls and so on. And we can already see that we missed something here. Like these trees don't look very flat, so probably their material doesn't use instancing right now. So we can improve that by going in here and just saying, well, our particular tree here, this guy, it should use instancing. And we're reusing basically the instancing settings from Unity, so we can just say, okay, let's turn on GPU instancing here, and if we export this again, then we should see that now this guy is instanced as well. Oh, let me refresh. I may have to do full export. So we're trying to be smart about which things to export at which point. So in some cases we don't catch all changes, like for example this GPU instancing change. But we can always do what we call a full export, or basically say, let's not be smart about this, let's just export everything, even if it takes a little bit longer. Okay, and we're live again, and now our trees here use instancing as well. And so, as said, this is just one of the many ways to like debug this. There's also stats or other things for making sure that we see exactly what's going on, or debugging colliders for physics and so on. Oh, and maybe debug collider actually. No, it's not. Ah, well, it's crashed it. Oh, but yeah, this is an example of kind of a bigger world that we're still working on, and it's going to be multiplayer explorable as well at some point. Oh, and with that being said, I think we can jump into looking a little bit at how to set up something with Needle Engine and also how to bring in characters and networking and that kind of stuff. And for that, I have prepared a small scene. Let me jump right over. So just kind of a playground test scene thing where I can show a little bit more about how different components work and how we're trying to find a balance between a crazy amount of control, like being able to adjust and change everything, and making it easy for creators to build their own stuff and to like set up custom worlds and all these kind of things. So let's look at this again. So basically we have a regular Unity scene here. We have the same thing again, like let me move this over here actually. We have our export info. It basically holds details about what we're building here, including some dependencies for additional components. Like here, for example, we have some additional components for controlling the local player and for switching between characters, which I'm going to show in a moment. And generally, the structure is exactly the same. Like we have these green bubbles here for our entry points, like the entire world. Basically, this will become one GLB file, like with everything in there, like these ramps and the planes and so on. So one GLB file loaded in one go. The rest of it here, like the camera, networking setup, all the kind of stuff, is becoming another GLB file that is also loading in even more things. So basically in Needle Engine, everything is structured in a way that you can decide when to load specific things. And we're making it easy to chunk stuff up so that that your website loads fast. So, and this is a very common problem for web experience or generally for interactive experiences. If they load for too long, people are gone. Like there are exceptions, of course, like if you have something that is super awesome and takes 60 seconds to load, you may be able to convince a few people. But we think if we can make things faster, then we should, especially in terms of loading and efficient rendering. Okay, to look at some of the things here, we have a regular camera. The camera has some orbit controls for being able to navigate the scene. It has an audio listener so that we can hear something. So all like just regular Unity components. But the special thing in Needle Engine is that we are mapping out these Unity components to TypeScript. And what that means, I can show as an example on our local player controls here. Like this is our player. And it has a bunch of components in Unity, like it has a character controller for moving around. There's input we can control and so on. And just to show how this is all interconnected, I can open one of the scripts up here. So, and you see that basically when you're editing code in Needle Engine, you're always writing TypeScript. And we have a syntax that's very similar to how you're building something in Unity. Like there's behaviors, there's game objects, there's components. You can link them up in Unity, like basically what has happened here. Like these are linked to other stuff in the scenes. And when you're exporting something to the web, then it will always like reconnect all these things for you. Like basically do all the bookkeeping and all the hard work of making sure things stay connected. Oh, and in here, the script, for example, it finds a couple of other components in the scene. It sets some stuff up so that a local player can control their own character, basically. So, and if I start this one here, like same thing as in the other example a second ago happens here. Like the various components are exported as GLB files. And I can also show some of this in a moment. Okay, here we go. And we're live in our little world. You see we have a character here. and I can actually move around with this character just as a super basic test. So these animations are a little bit janky. I didn't bother like adjusting them for now. This character is actually coming from the Webaverse character creator. So from studio.webaverse.ai. So this is fresh from here and basically running around in a Needle Engine world. And the way that this works is that in Needle Engine we're building, like we're not only exporting GLTF, we're also ingesting GLTF through Unity or through Blender as parts of you building your scene. So for example, she's just a regular GLB file that is imported here and then uses all the nice things that you basically get for free in Unity, like animation retargeting and all that kind of stuff. So we didn't need to create custom animations for this character. We're just using the mechanism system in Unity and retarget existing clips onto it. So when I look into the animation window here, you can see that we basically have existing humanoid clips from other characters, from Mixamo. Like there's so many sources for these clips. And the hard part is usually getting them to apply on a specific character. And this is something that becomes very easy because we're in a place here where we can just use retargeting from another software to apply animations to our other characters. So we have a couple more here for playing with them. And yeah, this basically gives us already a mini scene that has a little bit of a physical character. Like I can climb on stuff here and jump around. We still have our orbit control camera, so we're not like following the player for now. We can add that later if we want, but it's really something that's up to creators building their worlds on deciding what are the rules of this particular world that I'm making. Like how are people viewing it? How are people interacting with? What's going on and what do I want this world and this experience to be? And what's pretty cool is that this particular example here is already using networking. So we have a networking component here that's basically setting up what we call a room, like a synchronized room, where multiple people can be in and where they can like do networking stuff together, like they can see each other and so on. And the way this works is that we have the sync room, and we have another component that we call player sync, and the player sync knows, okay, this is the thing that we need to spawn for each player entering the session. And for lots of other systems, this is stuff that is very similar on what's like happening behind the scenes. Like if you're using Horizon or Hyperfy or Spatial or whatever, this is happening behind the scenes. And we think it's cool to have control over this, to decide like what is the thing that you're actually spawning per player. Is it actually an avatar and a character, or is it a race car, or is it both? Like you're spawning both of them at the same time, and then there's some connection where you're controlling it. So we believe in this kind of configurability being super important for building like the future of the web and for building what many people call metaverses around like what are the things that people actually want to do here. And we think it doesn't just like stop with only dropping avatars into something. There's so much more to explore, and we think we can give people this ability to explore that space more. Oh, but yeah, I'm getting a bit into talking here. I actually wanted to show networking. So we're just gonna open up another window here, and we're already live. Like we have our two characters. Like she's walking around here and she's walking around here. And I didn't get to add like a little bit of networking sync, like ran out of time for preparing, but I'm gonna add that at a later point, and then we're just gonna have a sample for, hey, here's how you can build a little networked world with a bunch of characters in it. So, and I also experimented a bit with like switching these avatars at runtime. I didn't quite get it complete, but at least I have a sort of like proof of concept for taking, like for example, we have this guy here that I also made with the AI Character Studio, and you can see it has a particular hierarchy, like there's bones in it, there's a combined mesh and so on. And since all of these have the same hierarchy, we can theoretically apply the same, or not theoretically, but we can apply the same animations to them. And this is, for example, what I can do here. Like I can just take this guy and replace with another one. Let's get this controller into here. So basically a totally separate character, also downloaded from the AI Character Studio. And here I can apply the very same animation to it. That's also coming from a different place, from a different like Mixamo character basically. And yeah, I said I was experimenting a bit with like swapping that at runtime. Didn't quite get it done, but I can also demonstrate, I can already demonstrate at least this kind of capability. Oh, 1 second. So I have her here, we can drop another character, it gets replaced. I didn't get to wiring up the animations, but this will also be part of the sample at some point. So yeah, like I can imagine that in the future this can be a very nice, or in the near future, can be a nice flow for like just clicking on configure my avatar, then the AI Studio opens, and from there I can check one out and then just plop it in here. So for example, yeah, why not? So, and instead of this, we would probably just say, okay, we're handing that back to a world that basically has requested a character, similar to how the like Ready Player Me avatar editor works, where you can just say like, you open an iframe, and then in the iframe you configure your avatar, and then you hand the file back to the application that requested it. And so people have a super easy flow without having to drag and drop files like I'm doing it here. Okay. Well, where's my camera so messed up? Oh, as said, this is still using the regular orbit controls and not something fancy. But we can actually like make this scene quite a bit nicer here by applying light maps to it. So this is something that I wanted to demonstrate, because this is traditionally very hard to do if you have kind of a closed platform like Spatial, where you bring your models and then you have to rely on their rendering stuff to make it nice. And if they can't, then they can't, and then it stays that way. So in both Unity and in Blender, we can use the engine capabilities to just say, okay, we want nicer light, we want to bake something, we have the capabilities in these engines, so why not use it? Now, basically what I can do is I can go to like rendering lighting here, can turn on light mapping, like just having this auto-generate for a simple scene like this one. And let's also tell our light that we want to have baked lighting, maybe soft shadows, a little bit of an angle here, so that we get nicer shadows in here. So in this we can like always just re-export and watch live on our website here. So here we have the light maps exported to the web. Okay. Oh, and of course we don't have to stop there. Like we can also add like emissive things that are lighting up the scene. just some stuff that I prepared. Okay, so and if we look at this in the browser, now again we have our light maps here. And so this kind of result is already something that if you're coming from a traditional flow, where you're like setting up a scene and making changes to it and stuff, this is relatively hard. Like you have to unwrap your entire scene, find a good tiling, all the kind of stuff. Like there's tools to make that easier, but I think we're doing a pretty good job at making this really super nicely integrated into something like Unity. You can just like change colors here, change the atmosphere of our world, maybe tune down the lighting somewhat. So I can make a new skybox here. Let's use this one. Make it a little bit darker for more interesting lighting. And maybe we can also tune this guy down. Okay, that's nice. Okay, yeah. So here's our totally different lighting environment and experimented in just a few moments. We still have both of our browsers open, so I'm always getting like 2 characters in here. Yeah, so this is like a little bit about lighting and light mapping, changing the mood of such a scene and so on. And I think I got a few questions, so maybe now's a good time to respond to some of those. Like one question was, is Needle Tools open for all, or does it have some fee-based model? So as mentioned earlier, it's not open source at the moment. Like we're considering a couple of options in terms of like funding and open sourcing and all that kind of stuff. But for now we have what I think super generous model where a lot of use cases are free. Like basically everything that's non-commercial, everything that's like for your personal arts, everything that's for building a portfolio, and everything that's for education, Needle Engine can be used totally for free. We also have this on our website, like in written terms, so that it's free for certain use cases, and that when you're doing something commercial with it, like literally earning money, then you require a license. And this currently comes with a price of like usually people buy the yearly license for like 800 per year, which is like for the full commercial set with support and everything, access to our showcase projects and so on. But yeah, as said, like there's a lot of terms for using this for free. And I think what's also worth noting is that while Needle Engine is not like open source in the sense of like you can take it and just bring it somewhere else, it is readable source. Like everything here is in the open. You can look at the entire core, you can hack around on it and so on. Also on the non-commercial license. So that is something that I think is super valuable, like both the integration side, like how does it integrate into Unity or Blender, and the runtime side in terms of all the code is just super accessible and hackable, and we encourage people to, we encourage people to do that and look at how it works and to extend where necessary. So like, for example, all our components are already here. You can look at how everything works together and so on. Yeah, so this was one of the questions, and the other question about networking. So as I just showed, like it's super easy to set up basic networking projects where you have a networking component where you say I want to have a synchronized room, and you have some things that do stuff in this room. And this can be as easy as having synchronized transforms, which is what I'm using here for for the player. Like this has a synchronized transform. So it's staying in sync across a number of clients. And you can totally make your own what we call synchronized fields, where you have specific like values and variables that you want to be stored into kind of the data model. And we're taking care of only synchronizing whatever necessary and all that kind of stuff. Always with a focus on making it super easy to start, like starting something that is networked is as simple as adding a couple attributes in TypeScript. But keeping the options open if you want to make it super fast, then you can use stuff like flat buffers and other technologies that are more efficient for like large worlds and that kind of stuff. And so, for example, what I showed earlier with Castle Builder, like this uses a mix. Like all the things in here are or almost all the things in here are core components, and this is all like synchronized across any number of clients. So if you want, you can jump onto this URL here, and it's like depending on how many of you are in the stream right now, this is going to be a bit crazy or may break, because currently these rooms are good for something like 20, 25 people, because this is running on free compute here essentially. For prototyping, but you can try it. You can join into this room and we can like build a castle here together. So just to show a little bit of the networking capabilities. Now I'm gonna wait for like a minute or so if people are joining. And while we're waiting, there's a bit more questions about networking, and I already started to explain that. Like, if you're prototyping, then all of this runs on either your local server when you're testing, or it runs on a glitch server for free. Like, there's no additional cost for this kind of prototyping networking where you have like 20, 25 people, and only if you want something stronger, then you have to look for AWS or other solutions for running a like complex networking backend. Yeah, and I understand this is going to be a little bit complicated on the stream now. Like I see the first people joining now in this, so you're going to hear me a little bit later. So you can just like click on things and drag them around. And let's add a little bit of these tiny archers here. And I can add another tab here just to show a little bit of the networking. And here we also have another case of giving creators the freedom on how they want to present network worlds. In terms of like, how do I show that someone is now like looking at this thing here? So we have this concept of different types of avatars. So for example, here we have this little camera which fits to the castle builder style as like a good representation for someone looking at a page from a specific angle. And so it's easy to see that there's like 3 other people here now that are also interacting with this world. And if someone was to join in VR or AR, they would get a more appropriate avatar, as I showed on Castle Builder on SideQuest before, that has like hands and a hat or all these kind of things. Depending really on which platform someone is joining. So we think it should be up to application creators to decide, does everyone need a third-person avatar here? Like wouldn't make a lot of sense if everyone was running around with like a third person or first person avatar here. You really want this freedom to look at this little world and build from all angles and so on. And so yeah, this is one example for doing that, running on like cheap, or in this case free compute. And if you deploy something, we have helpers for that, like from Unity, for example. It's super easy. You can just add a deployment component, and there's a couple options, like I could deploy this to Glitch, for example, or to itch.io, or to an FTP server. And just for testing, let's see if that all works out. I can make a deploy to Glitch component here, and then say, okay, I want to make a new remix on Glitch. Glitch is a service where you can basically for free upload on like tiny compute instances and have your application running, both like client and server stuff. So, and once this thing here is remixed, I'm just copying the URL and putting that back into Unity. And this is basically where we're deploying to. We're also making sure that when you're doing this for the first time, this is like your project, and you should pretty much be nearly immediately ready for deploying to it. So we're just waiting for this to wake up. Hello, Glitch, please wake up. Ah, now we got a key. What's going on? Okay, there we go. And now we can basically do a build of our little world here. So I can just click on build and deploy. And now we can watch basically Needle Engine crunching through the export here, like exporting the GLB files and optimizing them for the web. Like basically all the meshes get Draco compressed, all the textures get KTX2 compressed, and you have control over which things get compressed in what way. And we're also doing a lot of optimization magic on basically making, for example, textures what we call progressive, where you have a low resolution version of the texture in your file, and then when needed, we're loading the higher resolution version on demand, basically. And that's super awesome for larger worlds and for product configurators and this kind of stuff where you are not seeing everything at the beginning, but you want something that is like super small and so on. And so yeah, here we're already live. Like this web page is now already live in the web. So we have a new slice of the metaverse, basically, with custom characters from Webaverse. Of course, like super work in progress, but we also have nice lighting and so on. And this is live. You can send this to other people. Like same thing as before. If someone wants to join, we can do that real quick, just to have a little bit of a demo here. And I'm gonna wait a few moments until the stream catches up. There's another question about animations and sequencing in relation to light maps. So yes, some of that is possible. Like you can, for example, we can animate the objects here. And as usual with light maps, you need to be a bit careful on like how far you're stretching the animation. Oh, hi there. How far you're stretching the animation. For example, we could easily add an animation for these spheres going up and down, and the light maps would still look accurate, like they wouldn't look bad. But if we start moving these cubes around, then this would probably look a bit off. So yeah, let me start moving around here. So we have one more person. Oh, and as said, like the animations are currently not synchronized, so we see like other person here just moving around. But yeah, we can add that at a later point. So in terms of animation, maybe we can just add that to our little world here. Like we have this, and we can make sure that some of our spheres here, these could use a little bit of animating on moving up and down. So let's just do that. Like let's give them a parent and add the sphere to it. And now we can use the regular tools that like ship with Unity and that make doing stuff here so easy. So we can call this sphere animation idle, for example, and just make a couple keyframes here for like our sphere. Starts here, moves a little bit up, moves a little bit down, and goes back. So something like this, maybe make it a bit nicer. Take this out. Okay, there we go. Make it nice and slow. Okay. Yeah, that should be good enough for now. And if we want to do this, like if we want to start animating things that are light mapped, then in Unity we should turn off auto-generating light maps, because otherwise it's just gonna recreate them whenever we change something in the animation there. So what we're going to do instead is we're generating lighting once. Which is already complete, like we now have our light maps. Plus we have a little bit of animation on our sphere here. And we can continue to like use some of these nice tools in Unity. Like for example, we can turn our sphere here into a prefab and just place a few of it in the world like this. And then let's just get rid of these two outdated ones. Okay, now we have a couple of them, maybe one more. And then we're just gonna like rebake lighting. Okay. And we're gonna hit play again. So this is already the deployed one. I'm gonna close this for a moment. Here's our local server. And yeah, you see, we already get like some movement here. Of course, this is a bit boring. Like these all move in the same pattern, which they do by default in Unity. But what's cool is that in Needle Engine, we have added additional data to some components. Like for example, it's a very common problem that you have animations that you want to run a little bit like in a different sync. So what we can do here is we can click on this add animator data here and just say, well, we want to shift the animation randomly, and also we want to have it a little bit different speed. Adding that to our prefab, and if I save this again, we're now getting like nice and random animation here. So, and this is what I meant earlier with like, you can totally animate light mapped objects as long as you stay relatively close to their like original position and appearance. Like if we would be moving these around, then it looks weird because they have dark shadows below them. But often for things like lights or floating objects, you can get away with a lot of stuff for like making things nice in such a world. And what's also possible is like blending and toggling between light maps. Like we have an example of that on our website that I showed earlier. Let me scroll there. Like this one here, this is just toggling through 3 sets of light maps, all like baked from different lighting configurations in Unity. Oh, and at runtime we're just like switching between them, and yeah, could also fade. Like it's then going into kind of application specific things on what you as a creator want to achieve. Yeah, kind of similar to what we have set up here in terms of having different lighting environments and so on. Oh yeah, we can just deploy this again to make sure that we have the updated version live. Okay, 1 second. What I really like about this workflow is that I think it gives kind of the best of both worlds. Like you get a super fast path into the browser as a platform. Like I could also open this website on my Quest now and walk around in it, while at the same time keeping the full control of something like Unity, including all the tools that come with it, like light maps and so on. And I think this is where I think we will see much more of this kind of mix between powerful tools, the ability to make templates for others, like integrating things into their projects, and like building complex applications from smaller building blocks. So in a sense, we're using the Character Studio as a building block here. Like we're having our avatar from that and using that here. And so I really hope there's going to be more like cute small worlds that are not in like only a centralized platform, but that people start bringing to the wider web. And yeah, oh, someone's joining. Cool. Hi. Oh, then gone again. Oh, no, there it is. Yeah. What else did I want to show? Like, we only have like 8 minutes left. So if there's more questions, I'm more than happy to take them on. Okay, if not, I can also talk a little bit about the Blender integration and the other integrations that we're planning on or that we have already versions of. Because one of the beautiful parts of Needle Engine building on top of GLTF is that everything is kind of designed for being interoperable. Like the files themselves are just regular GLTF files. We have custom extensions that we're adding to them and that you can actually see in our docs. Like there's a guide, well, where is it actually? Technical overview. For like specific GLTF extensions that we have defined and that we're using. And wherever possible, we're trying to use official ratified extensions or things where there's alignment about. Yeah, we're adding this to GLTF, which means that the files are still compatible with other platforms. And that means that no matter if you're building in Unity or Blender, the result of this is the same files and they work in the same systems and worlds, which kind of opens up this future where assets become so interoperable that it doesn't matter anymore which tool you're making them in. Like you could make an interactive character with all kinds of stuff in Blender and bring that into a world running on Needle Engine or running on something else that can interpret the GLTF file in the right way. Kind of like VRM on steroids, like VRM as a format has already started to enable this specifically for animated characters. But how we envision this in terms of kind of the future of the metaverse and the future of an open web full of 3D is that it's super easy to bring assets and things from platform to platform. And it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out with lots of platforms kind of trying to close things down and making it hard to take your data out again, because obviously some platforms really want to be a sink, like a place where data goes in but never comes out. And I don't think this is going to be how the future of the web works there. I think it should always be easy to bring your data to various platforms, to like build worlds in one, bring that to another one that is awesome at light mapping, or that is really good at creating animations. Throw in a few AI tools in the mix potentially, and like just being able to create in a much more flexible way. Like, I hope the days are gone where someone says, I have to like think about switching engine to do this thing. I hope we can reach a point where, for example, I could import something like I made here into Blender and just continue working on it, including all of the components and all of the setup on it, independent of this being created originally in Unity. So, and I think this is hopefully a point that we will reach. And I believe it's going to be kind of a mix between open source toolings and solutions that often form kind of the outer areas, like both the foundations of a lot of other tools and kind of products that run on top of other infrastructure. But I do think there's going to be, especially in terms of creator tools, there's always going to be non-open source tools or tools that are paid just because they provide so much value for creators in terms of saving time, enabling use cases that are otherwise hard, and so on. And I mean, ultimately, like tool builders like us, we do have to have some way to finance continuing to develop on Needle Engine, because we want to do it full time and we want to grow and we want to have more people, and we're growing the team. And so, yeah, there's some need for that. And we're not really happy with the current developments in terms of economies being baked into platforms and all that kind of stuff is kind of the only way to have revenue as a tool maker. And so we think it's a good model for like asking for money for commercial use cases. If you're earning money with Needle Engine, you should like pay us a license fee that's far lower than what you're probably earning with it. Yeah. And as said, we have big plans for especially interoperability between our different integrations and between the web. And yeah, so like I think interoperability really is key for a lot of future cases that we're going to see. Like we've seen a lot of examples from Jin, for example, for bringing the same worlds into different platforms and looking what are the strengths and weaknesses of each. And I think ultimately this is going to be how things work. Like platforms should try to win by their feature sets and capabilities and not try to win by kind of locking people in and not having them get out again. And yeah, and I think we're in a good place. Lots of things are moving in that direction in a way where you can build anywhere, bring it anywhere, like GLTF as a format and USD as a format are kind of strong contenders for this quest for interoperability. Yeah, and something like the avatar creator from Webaverse is also a good in a good place there, like becoming or can become a building block. Like there can be other avatar creators and configurators, and people are free to choose and so on. So yeah, I think there's going to be a cool future for all these building blocks coming together, enabling creators to build worlds. like our little one here. Yeah, and with that, I'm unfortunately out of time and we'll have to leave in a few minutes. So if there's more questions, then now would be a good time to ask those. And we also have a Discord, so you can join our Discord if you have any questions about interoperability, building with Needle Engine. There's a vibrant community of more than 1,000 people by now, both for like the Unity side of things and our Blender integration. Yeah, and looking forward to feedback and happy to see you in our Discord and building whatever platform you're on. Thank you.